Well, thank you, Professor Jones, for your presentation. We can start off with just the first question. Why is everything so bad in Europe at the moment? We talk a lot about populism in the program and sort of just your take on the different causal mechanisms.
Yeah, so, obviously there are a lot of weird things going on, right? I mean, we have the Yellow Vest movement in France. We've got the whole Brexit debacle in the United Kingdom. We've got political changes taking place in just about every major European country. And I think if we try to use the word populism to describe all these things, it just wouldn't make any sense. Either we would lose all the meaning from populism, or we would fail to capture a lot of the important dynamics. So if I were going to answer your question, I'd say, look, democratic institutions are institutions, so they're stiff, they're rigid. Voters, though, are people, and they change over time. And what happens in societies is that a gap emerges between what the institutions deliver and what the people want. That's kind of a normal thing. We're in one of those periods right now. And so people are trying to find ways to be represented despite the fact that the institutions are not representing them. And that kind of turmoil, I think, is something that we should be expecting. And it's a responsibility for democracies to learn to adapt. The problem is that at the same time that this is happening, we're also facing a challenge that's associated with the way we've moved a lot of policymaking responsibility out of the democratic context. We've shifted it up to the European level. We've put it in politically independent central banks. And people are rebelling against that as well. So now we've got people rebelling against the institutions, but also against the policy framework. And if that's not complicated enough, what's happening in one country is having an impact on what's going on in other countries, both economically, because it's making it harder for us to make policies together, and politically, because these different protest movements are interacting in strange and bizarre ways that tend to have a reinforcing dynamic. So I think if we put all that together, the gap that emerged between what people want and what they're getting from democratic politics, the sort of frustration that people are expressing about the way issues have been taken out of the political process, and the interaction of this dynamics across countries, then I think we've pretty much explained everything we need to explain.
How has new media and technology played a role in this transformation?
So let's go back to that first point, right? The gap that emerged between what people want and what the traditional institutions are delivered. Well, old media and old political parties are those traditional institutions. So as people are looking for new ways to express themselves, they can't use those old frameworks because they don't get access to the op-ed pages, because the newspapers are not being read by the people they want to speak to, and because those things don't help organize them in a politically efficient way. So they shift to new media, and we're seeing them use new media for expression, to generate political pressure, to help organize new groups, and at times also to disrupt more traditional modes of communication, right? So new media is a positive thing, but it's a negative thing as well. And as I mentioned in that really complicated answer to the first question, the way this interacts across countries is also important, because we're seeing third countries coming in and using new media to disrupt our political processes. And I think we need to take that very dangerous prospect into consideration.
And then just moving to the last question, what is kind of the solution, or how can we improve this, democratic institutions across the board? That's
the key question. And the issue is twofold, right? One, we have to reset our expectations. Democracy is always going to be a work in progress. And this problem that we're facing right now, this is not the first time we've faced this problem. This is not even the third time we've faced this problem. And we're going to continue to face this problem in the future. So once we accept that democracy is a work in progress, and once we accept that this is going to happen from time to time, then we get to the second part of the solution. And the second part of the solution is to build political institutions that are adaptive enough to contain these new political forces as they emerge, rather than pushing them outside. I think the warning light should have gone off decades ago when people noticed that lots of people were dropping out of the democratic process. We need to be much more attentive to making democracy more inclusive in the future, not because inclusivity is a good thing in its own right, but because the lack of inclusivity is what sows the seeds for these damaging conflicts between the people and democratic institutions that erupt from time to time.